And I was right behind him. And this guy pulled at him. So he took his hood down, turned to see who wanted his attention, you know how you would. And then the three guys stood there. They all just pulled out weapons and they just started shooting him.
It was even to this day now, it's been 4 years on from nearly 5 years on from the incident. And it's still, you know, every time I think about it, it does scare me.
I can talk about a parent who have lost a child, you know, a teenager.
Trap monopoly, trap shit.
In April 2009, the Greater Manchester Police defeated one of the most notorious gangs in recent history. 11 high-profile members of the Gooch Gang were charged with a list of crimes that saw them all jailed for lengthy periods. Taking influential members from a dangerous gang proved to be a blessing for the city, as shootings immediately fell by 92%. Since the end of the Gooch Gang, there is no doubt that there has been a decline in gun and gang crimes, but it seems that the mentality still remains amongst the youth. The question of why young people adopt this mentality remains unanswered, with a range of possible reasons.
Before I moved to this area, when I was in the northeast, I'd have probably said it was probably because they lived in deprived areas and didn't have a lot of money, so they had to be involved in gangs in order to survive. But coming to Manchester and meeting the people, I've probably spoke to many people that have been involved in gangs over the past 20 years, and they've all been in it for different reasons. And I don't think I can honestly say that I've known anybody that's been involved in a gang because they're from the deprived area and they've got no option but to be involved in a gang.
The things that other people have, you don't have. So you want them, and it's normal to want nice things, isn't it? And so sometimes they living without fathers in the house, they're living with a mother, and the mother has to go out and work, and so they're kind of left alone, really, isn't it? You know, and they have to deal with themselves and look after themselves. And sometimes the people outside who are selling drugs, because drugs comes into this as well, will give them certain things, whether it's gifts and things like that, and they will think, oh, this person care about me, and you know what I mean, and then they will get involved in that. You know, they might get money for it or whatever it is. You know, they might feel, well, these people really like me and they're showing me that they like me and they care about me.
Everybody wants to belong to something, you know, whether if it's your church choir, whether if it's the Boy Scouts, or whether if it's your neighborhood group, or whether if it's your student group, you know, or you hang out with friends. We all want to belong to something where we're accepted for who and what we are, where we're not judged. Everybody wants to belong to something. So why do young people, why are they attracted to certain groups? Because they're accepted for who and what they are. Those people encourage them, you know, to do certain things. And let's not think about negative and positive, but they encourage them, they accept them, they groom them, they teach them. And that is what any group actually does, you know, to people. And if you're rejected by group A, you gravitate towards group B because group B is accepting you.
Gangs are not necessarily a negative thing. It could be a positive. you know, there's a gang of young people who go to university together. You know, and they stay in the same digs. It's a gang. You know, there's a gang of people who go to the mosque. There's a gang of people who drive taxis, and there are a gang of people who may be dealing drugs, who may be involved in antisocial behaviour. Unfortunately, the last two have a negative impact and are much more attractive to young people.
It's kind of almost replacing the family, and it's an instant payback. And that's and obviously there's kind of notoriety of being involved with gangs as well, and that helps people at a young age feel like they're belonging to something as well.
And I think it's part of street credibility, to be honest with you. It's all about the name, you know, when you're at that age. I know exactly what I like. When I was younger, I wanted a bit of a name. I wanted to be, you know, the person who everyone looks up to. But it's not worth it, and I don't think it'll ever be worth it.
Young people have a huge impact on their families, and being involved in a group that is causing issues is problematic, especially for their parents. However, there is a question of whether the families can have an equally effective but positive impact on their youngsters.
I think families can actually have a very big impact, but I don't think that families realise that they can have a very big impact on their young people. Because over the years, many a time, we hear adults saying, "Oh, I can't talk to them. I can't talk to my young person." Of course you can, he's 12. Why can't you talk to a 12-year-old? Why can't you talk to a 9-year-old? Why can't you talk to an 18-year-old?
I really believe it's the biggest impact, really, that family, a family. You were born in a family, you come from a family background. So depending what's happening within that family, say you're lacking in a father figure, you don't know your father.
Having a father in your life, which most people grow up in, single parent families, it's usually mother that's left with them, looking after them, and it's a struggle for them emotionally, financially. So often young boys are left on their own at the ages of 15, 16, and again they're replacing the father and that family unit with the gangs, and so the leaders of the gangs end up almost becoming surrogate bigger brothers, surrogate fathers, and so they get drawn towards people like that, and then that's how they easily get immersed into gang culture, which is, to me, it's a shame.
We as parents have failed, we as a community have failed to pass our value systems to our young people.
That family support network is huge to that individual, and when they're involved in that lifestyle, because as I said before about employees, us being facilitators to help people to help themselves, that's all well and good, but then if you do some work with an individual, if I do some work in a psychotherapy level with an individual in session, and then they go away to change that behaviour and they don't have that family support. I can think of an example most recently when a long-term goal for the individual was to be able to find employment. So I was encouraging this individual to go and get a CV done and giving him numbers of places where he could go. And he went home to his mum and he said, "Mum, I've decided I want to get a job." And his mum was completely unsupportive and said, "What do you want to do a silly thing like that for when you can go and claim benefits and you get this amount of money for doing absolutely nothing?" So then he come back to me and he said, "I don't want that goal anymore." And he was totally unmotivated now, and then he wanted to change his goals, and I just think without that support network there surrounding and encompassing that individual, there's only so much we can do as facilitators, and they ultimately need that support.
My parents did everything they could to keep me away from bad, to keep me away from harm's way, and look at what I did, everything what I did in that year. I respect my parents, for what they've done. They always give me everything just to make sure I stay away from everything. But I still went towards it, and I don't think most of the time it is a parent's fault, because they can do all they can, to avoid it. But
finding a solution for the issues young people face today has proved very difficult, as gang mentality has plagued many areas around the UK for decades. There has been a struggle in pinpointing a resolution for keeping youngsters away from gangs.
Hopefully, in my small way, whatever influence I can have on people, if I can share that with people, I can be a positive role model, that would be absolutely brilliant. I feel like I'm actually really, really fortunate to be in a position to be able to share my story and hopefully have some small influence on some people in some way to give them living proof, rather than people telling them what to do. I'm actually living proof that it can actually be done, that we can make changes, and there is opportunities out there if you work hard.
I think it can come from people that have been there, people that have seen it, from people that have actually experienced it. I'm talking people like me, or there's other people out there that can get involved, because when I used to be at youth clubs and we used to have people coming over from different projects, we used to laugh at them thinking, "Oh, what do they know about the street life? What do they know about the street life? They don't know nothing at all. A bloke in a tie and a shirt wearing some smart trousers on."
I don't think it's just getting them in a kind of a group and telling them A, B, C and D, and that's going to move them away. It needs something much stronger than that. And I really believe it's about relationships, caring and loving.
We have all the answers. I mean, even when things go wrong, we know why things have gone wrong. We might not admit as to why things have gone wrong, but we know why things have gone wrong. I mean, when there's shootings, most of the time we know who's done it. I used to say the streets talk. because usually that person is not by themselves. Even if they are by themselves when they do a shooting, they'll go back and they'll tell somebody. That person will know who will tell somebody. People always know. Like I said, I've not too long come back from the US Virgin Islands. They have about 60,000 people on their island, and they already said that nearly everybody's related. Everybody knows everybody. And I'm like, well, if everybody knows everybody and everybody's related, what's the problem? If you know, and they know who does the shootings, so we'll do some, then it's about, well, what do we do about it? And what we can do about it is to come together as community, as families, as people, saying that enough is enough. And, begin, speaking to our young people, or speaking to the adults that are involved, speaking to the adults who collude with people, meaning, those who know who's done it but think, it's not my problem, so I'm not going to say anything. It is your problem, and you are part of the problem. The fact that you know and you've decided you're not going to do anything about it, you're also part of the problem.
I think it has to come from within communities, and I think it has to become from education within, from parents to children, because I think there is a lot of reasons why people get involved in gangs, but I don't think people particularly knock on your door and say, do you want to be involved in a gang? It doesn't happen like that. It's postcodes, where you live, who you mate about with, and what's going on, and if it's a defensive factor. And some people get linked into gangs and they're already in the gang before they've even known that the gang's there. And if you ask the individual, they wouldn't describe themselves as a gang member. It's just a friendship group. So I think the support would have to come through the family network, the communities, and just education that be careful about what you might be getting into. Just have your eyes open instead of being blinkered to where you're going and what you're doing, and that it could be perceived as such.
We all have a role to play in this. We all have a role to play in this. The pull for young people from people who are the same age is much stronger than authorities. So if they see their parents as an authority, they will gravitate towards people their same age.
Even though it isn't as big of a problem as it was around 10 years ago, the gang mentality that young people have adopted is having disastrous effects on communities and causing the loss of many lives. This has caused many organisations to work towards bringing about a positive future for our young people.
So what I would like to see for young people in the future is that they're not always blamed for when things go wrong, and that those of us who can, we do preventative work with our young people before they get into problems, because usually, again, we wait for young people to fall into the hole and then we start wanting to fish them out and get them out, whereas really we should prevent them from falling in the first place, because as adults we know that hole's there. So why do we wait to when they fall in and then we go and try and rescue them? Why don't we rescue them way in advance? And that's how I'd like to see us working with our young people, letting them know from day one, you can be something.
I just wish that everybody had, I know it's probably a bit of it's like a world peace thing, but I just wish that every individual had felt at some point like they had one person that they could support and gain that support from, and have that trust and that empathic relationship that could advise them and facilitate them to make right decisions. Because I think without that, there's always going to be there's always going to be the nurture or the need for support in another network, and that could be the gang network. They could get the support from the gang members.
To believe that there is opportunities out there, that being involved in a gang and all that's involved with it is not the be all and end all, that there's lots of opportunities out there for people, and especially for black people who might be concerned with the idea that there is nothing out there for people, that black people there's no jobs for us, or there's only poor jobs for us, that there is opportunities and there is hope for people out there, and that if they're prepared to do a bit of work and with a bit of support within the community, then they can kind of achieve whatever they want to achieve.
I live in a community and I live a community, okay? So I see both the positive and negatives in the community that I live in. And when I see young people going to universities, achieving, who have come out of the educational system and now are professionals, I am filled with hope for the future. And in the same way, when I see young people in negative activities. I'm full of despair. Nonetheless, we're all hopeful for the future.
Somebody has to be the boss. You're running away from things outside here in the world saying, well, who do these people think they are? They think they need to send me here, there, blah, blah. And then you go in a gang and it's the same systems that's in there. But it's crueler in that, you know what I mean? They'll beat you up, they'll kill you if you leave and that kind of thing. So I really believe they learn that, and then the next generation kind of tend to, learn some sense and see it as well. They too are living in it and they're seeing it. Those who haven't done it are living it and seeing it. And so the people who have grown up in it now then start having children, and then hopefully, that's going to change. I believe everything has a beginning and an end, so things will change for the better.
I think I'd like to see more elder people, more of like the influential members to get involved, and I think it does take a lot. I think it takes a lot of people to swallow pride and to swallow egos and put everything aside and that, and start thinking for the youngsters.
Often young people look at gangs as a way of being successful in life and risk their lives as well as the lives of others. What they fail to realise is the consequences of their actions, which on many occasions have been fatal.
Look at the people who were involved in those gangs. Where are they today? They will see them in jail. They will see them under suspicion. They will see their doors being broken down by the police. Is it worth it?
I love asking questions to young people. When I see them doing something that I think isn't a good thing to do and they're not going to benefit from it, I usually ask them, why are you doing it?
I wouldn't sit here and tell someone, I don't think you should get in a gang, because it doesn't work. You can't tell people what to do. People often, if you start trying to tell people what to do, they will do the exact opposite. So I'll just try and encourage them and support them, and maybe provide, make suggestions.
Whatever they get from it, it doesn't last. I mean, the highs don't last very long, because soon, your past or whatever you do, it catches up with you. Whether if that's good or bad, it catches up with you. I mean, I've not too long come back from St. Thomas, US Virgin Islands, where they have an issue with gun crime. They actually have the highest gun crime rate in the world, and I think it's because it's such a small landmass, with a small number of people. But again, some of the side effects of what you see is a lot of their young men are in prison, incarcerated. That's the word they use. I don't like that word, but a lot of their young men are in prison. A lot of them are dead, or die before the age of maybe 18.
Often young people are influenced by the benefits that they can get. So it might be the money, the girls, the kudos, status, reputation, but they don't often look at the long-term effects, the long prison sentences, like 10, 15 years for something. If you get done for something, guilt by association, for being with somebody that's committed an offence, you can get a hefty sentence. And you can get IPP'd, which means that you can get an indeterminate prison sentence, so you don't know when you're going to get out. So it's just, let alone the fact that some people are unfortunate to lose their lives in these situations accidentally or on purpose.
When you're in a small cell and you're missing out on your birthdays, you're spending your birthdays on your own, and whatever's happening at home, you've got all that stress on your head, you're away from your loved ones, and it comes to small stuff like small celebrations such as Eid and Christmases or Easter or whatever you celebrate, or whatever your religion is. It's only then that will make you realise, when you're away from everything, when you're inside and like your loved one dies and that, and you can't even attend the funeral because of it. Maybe that's what might make you realise.
And I think we need to take a lot more time to ask questions to young people and listen to them. I think that's really important. We found that very important in working with young people, listening to what they say, asking them questions, and then bringing them to a point where they start thinking for themselves, because usually in gangs they're not thinking for themselves, other people are thinking for them, and we find that when you do that, change comes.
There's loads of opportunities out there for young people. And I think whilst one of the things we used to say in Charisma, whilst we can't give you a job or give you what you want, we can certainly open a door of opportunity for you. And rather than just giving you a window of opportunity to look through, we can actually open a door for you to walk through. However, it's your choice if you want to walk through that door of opportunity.
The world is much, much bigger than a small gang. And to succeed in the world, if they put their energies into education, because that is the key. To succeed, the key is education. And if they start competing in education, then they will forget about gangs and see the big wide world is theirs. It's there to be taken. They've just got to make an effort.
The gangster, we see what they got and we sweat them, but it ain't just the dollars that you got, but how you get them. Yo, it ain't just crooks and killers and Wild West shit. It could be as subtle as your choice of investment in the food chain, corporate culture. You gon' find a whole lot of cats with only one thing on their mind, and that's to be the man, simple and plain, fortune and fame, unaware the roads paved with depression and shame. And yes, this might mean some of you get less, but you get more out of life when there's more to success than worrying how they gon' beat you, defeat you. More than comfort at the expense of those beneath you. Let's turn this shit around before it's too late. It might be fly right now, but just wait. The older that you get, the more it gets clearer. Yo, it's probably why old gangsters can't stand married. There's no gangsters in